Hello and welcome to the Alliance Pro Wrestling Network special interview. Joining me today is the host of the pioneering show, the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. He is the author of this fantastic book, Matt Memories, My Wild Life in Pro Wrestling, Country Music, and the Mets. He also hosts another podcast called Matt Memories from MSG and an upcoming baseball podcast. He's very busy, The John Gibbons Show. Very happy to welcome back the man, John Arezzi. Welcome back to the show, John.
Hey, Lois, always a pleasure to be here with you.
Hey,
Thank you
it's
for
always,
inviting me.
hey, it's the pleasure's all mine. Every time you come on, the pleasure is, trust me, the pleasure is all mine, my friend. So the book about the Mets, let's talk about the Mets for a bit. They seem to be doing well. What are their chances? You think they're going to the World Series? Or?
I think they got a really good shot. I was in Atlanta the last few nights, and so happy we got the victory last night.
Yeah.
Team looks good. I think they'll definitely be in the playoffs. And I hope that they'll win the division so they can get that bye in the first round. But I am more excited about this Mets team than I have been in many, many years. They're the best team that I've seen since '86.
And they have a better record than the Yankees right now, so that's the most important.
They do, don't
That's
they?
the most important thing. So we're going to talk about Bruno Sammartino today, regaining the title from Stan Stasiak on December 10th, 1973. But before we get into that, this is going to lead into two questions not related to that match. But do you know what happened? Is a trivia question. Do you know what took place exactly 1 year before Bruno Sammartino won the title?
1 year before, that would be December 10th, 1972.
Yes. Trivia
What
question.
happened? I don't know.
Some legend made their debut.
In the WWWF?
No, in the AWA.
Holy smokes.
I'll give you a hint. Woo!
The Nature. I was going to say, that's the first name that popped into my head, actually.
Yeah, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, made his debut December 10th, 1972. So, wow. Ric Flair, 1972, makes his debut. Let's talk about his last match in 2022. What were your thoughts on that? Because I was watching that match, and I was legitimately scared for Ric Flair. I thought he wasn't going to make it through the match.
That's exactly how I felt. I was at StarCast that weekend. I did not go to the live Flair match. I watched it on Fight TV.
Okay.
And it was the only wrestling match that I've seen on TV that I was actually yelling at the screen for someone to check on him.
Yeah.
I was genuinely scared for his health and well-being. And it was scary to see it. Apparently he's okay. He's still out there wooing and styling and profiling, but I think, and he explained it on a podcast recently with Conrad Thompson, that he was dehydrated, and he came out, and he was very busy over the weeks leading up to it, and especially that weekend, from the Flair roast to Rick partying, not knowing how to not party. And then they had him busy all weekend long doing panels and interviews, and then that night he came out and he looked right from getting out of the curtain like it wasn't right. And even though he trained pretty hard with Jay Lethal, he looked okay in those training sessions. But when he came out from behind the curtain, he didn't have the belt on adjusted right, so that looked like he couldn't hold it up. I mean, it was just everything. He couldn't perform in the ring in anywhere, shape, or form that he even 10-20% of what he was. But he did it. He wanted to do it. It was very successful in regard to the gate and to the pay-per-view audience, and he got through it barely. He passed out twice. He talked on that podcast. He passed out twice in that match.
Yeah.
So hope it's out of his system.
Well, I don't know. He said that he wishes he didn't call it his last match. And I read something today where he said something along the effects of, next time I'll drink water instead of beer.
Right.
Before.
So that's why he was dehydrated. Yeah, he was not he was not hydrated.
Yeah, but when he said next time, do you think there's going to be a next time?
Well, I heard that he made a promise to Conrad that this would be his last time, and Conrad is his son-in-law, and Conrad was the guy responsible for putting up the money. So I don't know. It would be a disappointment if he tried it again
Yeah,
for
I
people
hope.
who know and love him, because he's still Ric Flair. I mean, he's still
Yeah.
the Nature Boy, and he's still an iconic figure, and he is hopefully okay financially with all the things that he's doing. That he doesn't need to get in the ring.
Hmm.
He just needs to. But sometimes it's in your blood, and it's like an addiction that you can't. You have to keep going to feed that addiction, and I hope that in this case he just kind of realizes that a lot of people care about him and revere him as I do,
Yeah.
and that he doesn't give it another go around in the ring.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Ric Flair, but the fan in me does not want him to get back into the ring in 2022.
No, so
So
you were actually afraid when you were watching it.
I was watching when Andrade came over to make the tag towards the end, and Flair was lying on the ring apron, could barely lift up his arm, and he had to slowly roll into the ring. I was like, they gotta stop this match.
Yeah,
This.
that's when I was yelling at the TV because he had his hand draped over the rope,
Yeah.
and it was someone please check on this guy to see if he's okay.
I mean, when Jarrett went to hit him with the guitar, Lethal had to literally push him out of the way because he wasn't able to.
They couldn't even lift him up on the ring
Yeah,
ropes.
yeah,
I mean, they couldn't even lift him up to get him to do a suplex. They could. He was not functional.
yeah. Well, hopefully that will be his last match. I know a few days later we got into it with Carlos Colon in Puerto Rico, but hopefully that'll be. We won't see him in the ring again. I hope he's like.
We
Doesn't.
shall see.
Yeah, we shall see. Okay, so let's get into Bruno and Stan Stasiak. Actually, December 10th, 1973, as I mentioned earlier. Actually, that's my birthday, December 10th. So my fourth birthday, Bruno regains the WWF title. I'm sorry, WWWF title, defeating Stan Stasiak. Before we go into the match, let's go back a bit before that title change. Pedro Morales is a champion. He's seemingly extremely popular. He won the title in 1971. The crowd exploded. Why do you think McMahon lost faith? McMahon Sr. lost faith in Pedro as a champion.
I think the gates were down.
Okay.
He wasn't drawing as well as he did previously. So that might have been the reason why McMahon reached out to Bruno and says, "Hey, you want to come back and give it another shot?" And Bruno at this point had rested for a couple of years, not doing a lot of shows, and maybe the timing was just right. And everyone knew that if Bruno had that opportunity, that the attendance would probably pop for a while, and it did.
Yeah, absolutely. I was looking at some of the attendance, and you're right. I think the match before he lost to Stan Stasiak, Pedro headlined Boston Garden. I think he drew 8,500. Bruno coming back the following month, it was like I think 15,000 at the Boston Garden. So Bruno was drawing more. But how do you think Pedro felt when he was told, "Okay, we're taking the title off you"?
Well, it's part of the business,
Yeah.
and he had a run. He had a good run, and everything comes to an end. So but typically McMahon Sr. always had like long-term planning.
Yeah.
So whether this was or not predetermined by many months in advance remains to be seen. Because even when Graham was signed, and Graham knew he was going to win the title on this day and lose it on this day, and they had ordained Backlund to win on that specific day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how long in advance this was planned. It was a surprise to a lot of people when we found out when Pedro lost the title in Philly on December 1st. That was kind of a shock.
Yeah, I mean, you said long-term planning. Stan Stasiak, I'm reading, didn't know until like 2 hours before the match that he was winning the title. Do you think Pedro knew before that, or do you think he also knew?
I don't know. I mean,
okay.
It would make sense that he would know, unless it was kind of like, all right, here's the attendance figures for Philly and Boston and New York, and they're dropping. That maybe McMahon is like, it's time to shake it up, and maybe that's when Morales found out.
Do you think if Pedro defeated Bruno at Shea Stadium, the gates would have been higher? If they put him over at
That's a good question. I mean, that definitely, that match still is just kind of a wasted opportunity. There should have been a clean finish in that match. Someone should have got their shoulders pinned or submitted. And I think that they could have done a nice little run with Bruno versus Pedro but that was fear because of the fan bases for both of those individuals, and
Yeah,
people thought it was real back then.
yeah. I think you had mentioned if the title change happened at Madison Square Garden, there would have been a riot. Do you really believe there would
Absolutely.
have been a riot?
There would be no way that Pedro Morales could have dropped the title or lost at Madison Square Garden, because that would have caused a riot.
What if Bruno beat him though? Bruno, do you think there would have been a lot of fights in the
Well, you
audience?
still had you had a fanatical Latin fan base. I mean, the Puerto Rican fans, they that was their hero. Morales was their hero, and Bruno would have been looked upon as a heel back then, and you would have had the Italians and the other fans of Bruno. It could have been an ugly situation. So I think it was wise not to do that, because who knows what would have happened.
Yeah, no, I've always been curious if a riot actually would have broken out or if it was Bruno, what would have happened. But your thoughts on Stan Stasiak, though, as I was always impressed with that heart punch, but your thoughts on Stan Stasiak?
I always thought he was a great brawler. You know, not the very best technical wrestler, but a great brawler, great finisher with the heart punch. It was a very realistic finisher. And Stan was a rough guy. He was believable as a heel, and he was somebody that you could look at and say this guy actually has a legit shot at beating whoever his opponent was. And my very first live match was Stasiak versus Morales.
Okay.
When Morales bled and Stasiak bled, and I don't know if it was a no contest. I think it was a no contest. I don't even think they gave Pedro the loss there due to blood. I don't remember specifically. It's probably in the record books. But it was my first show, and it was believable. And everything Stan did was kind of believable. It was there was no gimmicks involved with him other than that heart punch and his spokesperson, which was the Grand Wizard.
Yeah, no, I was a fan. I mean, I became a fan after Stasiak had left, but left the WWF. But did you know that he had one title defense? I didn't know that he had. I didn't realize he had one title defense in
In
Massachusetts.
between the time he won and the December 10th, where was
December 7th, 1973, in North Attleboro, Massachusetts, against Chief Jay Strongbow.
No kidding. And
It
did
was
he win?
it was a no contest. It was a no contest. I saw that on a cage match, actually about a half hour ago. So yeah, it was no contest at the USA Witchy Sports Arena.
Jack Witchies. Yeah.
Yeah, no contest. He defended the title. The crowd must have been popping for Jay Strongbow to win that title.
Absolutely.
I saw excuse me. I thought I was reading the attendance. I think there's only like 1,500 people in the building that
It
night.
was a small little place.
Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
Jack Witchies. I lived up in Massachusetts, went to college there, and I went to Jack Witchies, and it was a barn. It was like, it was a small little place, and 1,500 might have been the capacity.
I wish they filmed these matches. I mean, the title change, Stan Stasiak title change, Bruno. I think there's some. I think you filmed it, but the film was ruined.
Yeah, I didn't. Unfortunately, I did film the other matches that night, but something happened. The film was exposed. I opened up the canister, and the film got exposed, unfortunately. But there is some footage of that out there, but not the finish.
Yeah, no, I that's what I was gonna allude to. I saw that footage on it's very grainy footage too of Bruno against Stasiak. I think they dubbed in Captain Lou Albano doing the announcing. But why do you think this is history? Why do you think they didn't film these matches? And
well, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, they really didn't start taping at the Garden until they struck a deal, and it was on HBO initially. But yeah, I mean, they didn't, and it's unfortunate, because that's history, and they didn't do that. I mean, even the only footage, of Andre the Giant's first match in 1973, I have the only known footage of it, and it's the only footage of it. They didn't film it, they didn't tape it, and it's unfortunate. Ironically, they did film the night that Pedro defeated Ivan Koloff.
Yeah, that I've seen.
So I mean, it was very rare, and who knows why, but they lost a lot of history there.
Yeah, disappointing, especially again, I know we spoke about it last time, but Bruno against Pedro, I really wish they filmed that. It was a match of the century, but they're not gonna record it.
Right.
That's it's okay. So December 10th, 1973, while I'm playing with my new birthday toys, I'm 4 years old. Bruno's about to become the new WWWF champion. You were at that match.
Mhm.
When did you find out that Stasiak was the champion? There's no internet that back then. But when did you find out that he was the new champion and Bruno was getting a shot at regaining the title?
It was really through probably phone communication that I learned of the title switch. And I mean, everything was just via telephone then. There was no faxes or nothing like of that nature. And it was probably, I would assume, Georgianne Macropolis or George Napolitano or
Yeah.
whoever I was in close contact with at that time told me. And the minute I learned that Morales lost, because I wrote about it in my Freddie Blassie fan club newsletter. I mean, it was
Okay.
like immediate. I had it, and you knew that on December 10th, because Bruno was then elevated to main event status to fight for the title, we all knew that Bruno was now coming back.
So, like, how you must have been like super excited, for that night because you
Oh
knew
yeah, I mean,
Bruno was going.
here's the deal. I mean, I was at Madison Square Garden, had a restaurant bowling alley in the building, and I'd get together every month with George Macropolis and a guy named Mike Omansky and a guy named Richie Mershon from Philadelphia, a bunch of hardcore, semi insiders. And Georgianne ran Bruno's fan club for years, and so we always got together for dinner before. And that night, December 10th, 73, it was like a party. Everyone knew that Bruno was going to win, and we were there to celebrate even before the match took place. Because Georgianne was close to Bruno, obviously. So obviously she was tipped off that this was definitely going to happen. And I remember there were balloons there. I mean, it was kind of like this whole party before the match even took place. And there's probably about a dozen of us there, just kind of couldn't wait to get into the arena to see it. And at that time, I didn't have photographers' credentials, but I had a first row seat because I knew a guy at the box office, and it was Bill Baker. And you'd go the day of the show, and then he'd call you up to the window, and he opened it up, and it was $7 ringside, and you give him a $3 tip, and you get first row. So I was sitting in the first row, and I was right there for it, and I had my still camera and my movie camera, and I was able to document a lot of it. At least the still photos still exist.
So they had a party for Bruno before the match even happened. Is what you
Well, Bruno wasn't there.
Okay, okay, but they were celebrating his win before he
Right, but
actually won.
afterwards at the Savoy Bar, which was located on 55th Street between 7th and 8th Avenue in Manhattan. That's where everyone went, across the street from the Edison Hotel, and there was a party there for Bruno. When Bruno came in, everyone applauded, and he was the champion.
That must have been a great, great moment.
It
So,
was.
what was your reaction when Stan Stasiak came out with the title around his waist? It must have been just a chorus of boos.
There was a total chorus of boos, and the fans were revved up for the show, and of course, when Bruno followed, no entrance music for anybody back then, the place exploded, and
Oh, Bruno came out after the champion. He didn't come out before the champion.
the champion came out first.
Wow. Okay. Usually it's the other way around, but no, I can understand, Bruno getting the pop, but the roof must have blew off the building when Bruno came out.
Oh, it was electric. The entire match was electric because it was like it was in the air that something special was about to happen.
And you said it exploded when he came out as a challenger. How much louder was it when he won the title?
Couldn't hear yourself. The building was shaking. It was
Yeah.
it was an explosion that I had not heard as a wrestling fan up to that point, attending live shows. I'm getting cold chills just talking about it.
Wow. Yeah, man. I wish I was 14. Well, would I be able to get in if I was 14? You had to be
14 and up. Yeah, if you
Yeah.
were 14 and over, you can get in.
Yeah, so I was 10 years too young, unfortunately. But how did he get the title back? Was it a roll up? Was it a bear hug? How did he win the
It
match?
wasn't a submission. It was a pinfall.
Okay.
So it was I don't remember if it was a roll up or if it was a body slam, just a body slam and a pin. It could have been, but it wasn't a submission. It was a pinfall, and it could have been just a couple of body slams and a pin. That's how it was back then.
Yeah, no, man, I wish I was there for that, man. But I'm thankful to be talking to you about it, man. It's just visualizing in my head. I wish I was there, man. But were there any boos from Pedro fans? Did you hear any boos? The Pedro.
No,
Okay,
I
okay.
mean, actually did not. And I believe Morales was on the card against Larry Hennig
Yeah,
that night. It was a return match.
That's my next question. That was my next question, actually. But go ahead.
Yeah, so it was a return match, and Pedro got a great ovation from the fans that were there. The makeup of the crowd was a little bit different. It wasn't the majority, wasn't the Hispanic fans that showed up month after month for Pedro. There's a ton of Bruno fans there, but it was kind of a magical night. It really was. It's something that has stayed in my memory since it happened, and I posted some photos of it recently on my Patreon page.
Okay.
And just seeing those pictures again and finding them was pretty cool.
That must have been great.
So, I mean, it was a sellout. I mean, 22,093 were there. That was a complete sellout at the Garden. There wasn't any closed circuit. I mean, the gate was about 104,000.
Okay.
And Morales beat Hennig. It was a great card. I mean, the card was phenomenal. I mean, because you had Morales against Larry Hennig. You also had John Tolis coming in from the West Coast to make his Garden debut against Victor Rivera that night.
Okay, wow.
So that match was something that I was looking totally forward to. And then you had your, Strongbow, Blackjack Lanza. You had Jose Gonzalez on the show. You had Dean Ho. You had Donnelly O'Jonathan against Manuel Soto.
Wow.
And a lot of those matches I have on 8mm. But the jewel of that night, that historic match, I don't have. And that's such a disappointment.
So the Morales Hennig match was supposed to be a title match originally, right?
It was, yeah, because they had a match the month before where it was November 12th, and it was stopped due to blood. Hennig opened up a cut, and they stopped the match and gave Morales the victory in that one.
I read it was a lumberjack match. Was it a lumberjack match? I read on
December 10th.
December 10th.
I don't recall it being a lumberjack match. I have photos of it. I don't remember that.
Because I looked, I checked Cage Match, and they have all the cards, and they indicated on there that it was actually they call it a lumberjack death match. So maybe it's somebody added that in, and it's not true.
It could have been billed as that before the match took place because of the title.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And then they might have changed it that night, not wanting to take away from the excitement of the main event, which was Stasiak Bruno.
Yeah, so wow, that must have been a fantastic night, man.
It was a magical night. It was crazy from before, the excitement, because during the week you knew that something special was going to happen, and then the little party before, being at first row, watching it unfold in front of me with my cameras, and then the party afterwards at the Savoy Bar in Manhattan. It was a pretty magical entire day.
Yeah, you're making me very, very jealous right now.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So did Pedro Morales, did his popularity dwindle after? I know I think he stuck around till about 1975, but did his popularity dwindle a bit?
He did, and he had a match with Stasiak on January 14th, 74. And he beat him in that one. And I'm just kind of looking back at the records. He was there for a while before he left. I mean, I'm looking into even June 74, October 74. I think he was gone by then. Yeah, he was, but he stayed around to the summer of 74, and then he went to do some stuff in Los Angeles. He did some international touring. That's Medusa, so I can't really talk to her right now.
Okay.
So I just silenced her.
No, is that Medusa Michelli?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm doing the emceeing for the Cauliflower Alley banquet.
Oh, okay.
He's going to be up there with me doing some stuff. So.
Okay, doke.
We were supposed to talk at 9 a.m. So she's 3 hours late.
So, okay. We're almost done here, so you can give her a quick call. But you're looking at the January 14th, 1974 show.
Yeah.
You were at that show, right?
I didn't miss a Garden show.
Oh yeah,
from,
what
71 to
what am I
77.
saying? What am I asking you that silly question for? Two questions I want to ask you. One, love the name Butcher Brannigan. What can you tell me about Butcher Brannigan?
Butcher Brannigan was a guy that initially came in. I believe his name was Mike Monroe initially.
Okay.
Could have been. They might have changed it up, but Butcher Brannigan was this rough Irish guy with a red beard and very, very stocky guy, good brawler.
Okay. Bruno took on actually Don Leo Jonathan
Yes.
on that show. That must have been an absolute. I know Leo Jonathan was feuding with Andre, I think in 72, but that must have been an absolutely phenomenal match.
Oh yeah, I mean Bruno versus John, because Don Leo was in my top 5. I mean,
Yeah.
I always hoped that would win the title someday. He was one of those guys that should have been a world champion. And I remember filmed his matches against Morales at the Garden. I have those on 8mm. But him against Bruno at the Garden, and Bruno gets the victory to have his first title defense after re-winning the title at the Garden. So it was a great night. I mean, just to be able to be there and to see two of my favorites against each other.
And of course, you mentioned Pedro gets the win back from Stan Stasiak.
Yep.
Another match, last match, and then I'll let you plug anything. I know you have somebody waiting. Dean Ho, Tony Garea defending the titles against Larry Hennig and Mike McCord, also known as Austin Idol.
Yes.
But he was a lot bigger back then. I don't remember him as Mike McCord. I grew up watching him as Austin Idol. What can you tell me about him as Mike McCord? And Larry Hennig and Mike McCord back then must have been an absolutely terrifying tag team.
Oh yeah, I mean McCord was this guy with this huge, big barrel chest. I mean, when you look at him today, or when he made it big as Austin Idol, Mike McCord, and it had to be steroids. I would have to figure that it was, because he was so big, and so he had a tremendous frame on him, and the big barrel chest, and the long hair, and he had great charisma. And yeah, him teaming up with Hennig was really cool. But he was somebody that I always felt that would get a bigger push in the WWF, but he didn't. But he was massive in size. I mean, he was so big.
Yeah.
And it had to be, and I didn't know anything about steroids back then. I was a kid. But when you look back in the day and everyone says Billy Graham, or maybe Mike was just so big on weightlifting, but I can't envision that, because he looked like a different person when he transformed and lost all that weight and became Austin Idol.
Austin Idol, yeah.
But Mike McCord was massive.
And there's no video of him as Mike McCord. I looked everywhere. I couldn't find any matches available.
No, they weren't filming back then, and of course, I don't think I have very many photographs of them either.
And they lost. Dean Ho and Tony Garea. They're not as big as Hennig and McCord, but what do you remember about that match? Ho and Garea successfully defended the titles, but what do you?
Well, they were getting the big push until the Valiant Brothers would come in and beat them. But they were very popular, and who should have won? Never, who should have won in your own opinion? You get disappointed a lot, because if it was real, Hennig, McCord should have definitely handled the other two pretty
in like less than 4 minutes, probably.
Exactly.
I think Roddy Piper lost his first match. His first match ever was against Larry Hennig. It was like 9 seconds long.
Yeah, could have been.
Yeah,
Roddy was a scrawny little kid.
Yeah, when he first started. Anyway, before we wrap this up, is there anything you want to plug?
As always, I mean, the podcast that I'm doing, Pro Wrestling Spotlight, John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight, comes out every week, and we go back 30 years to talk about what was going on in the business. We're in the middle of covering the Bill Watts era right now in WCW and NWA. The guests have been Terry Funk recently, Paul E., who was sent home by Bill Watts. So we have a great Hawk from Legion of Doom is on this month as well,
Okay.
from 30 years ago,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
So that podcast comes out every Thursday, and it's available wherever you get your podcasts. Matt Memories from Madison Square Garden is the podcast that I do that celebrates the 50-year anniversary to a house show. And we're releasing the September 2nd, 1972 episode on September 2nd.
Okay.
And then we'll have a special about the Bruno Pedro match at Shea Stadium. That
Okay.
is Matt Memories at Madison Square Garden.
Okay, doke.
Other than that, patreon.com/John Arezzi. You can see all my archives, get vintage wrestling magazines, video, audio, 8mm films, $5 a month gets you in the door for the entire archives of the Spotlight. And then there are other tiers. And we also bring patrons on the podcast to also participate in those discussions. So there's a lot there. John Arezzi's, it's actually patreon.com/John Arezzi. And then I can't wait to get the Gibby podcast started.
Yeah, that's exciting. You're a busy man these days. You're a busy man.
Yeah,
these
lots
days.
of stuff going on as always. You got to keep busy, and I'm doing a bunch of stuff, so it's kind of cool.
Well, I will say that Matt Memories is my favorite podcast right now. I never miss it. Great podcast.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, do you think we could do this again?
Hey, listen, you just let me know anytime if I'm available. I always make time for you because I enjoy the times that you reach out to me and doing this with you.
Oh, I appreciate it because I'm thinking the first Bruno Superstar Billy Graham match, possibly next discussion.
That could be a good one.
Okay, let's do it. So I will reach out and hopefully we get this going maybe next month. But again, want to thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome.
Absolute pleasure, absolute honor, and I wish nothing but the best of luck in the future. I look forward to doing this again, John.
Thank you, Lewis. Good to
Take
see
care.
you.
Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye-bye.